Hey, everybody. All right. We have a great panel on serial entrepreneurs. Before we start, how many first-time founders do we have in the room right now? Show of hands, please. First-time founders. All right, very cool. Any serial founders out there? Any people that did it once and are crazy enough to do it again? All right, very cool. Well, I got two crazy founders up here who have started many companies and went back for more pain, from the security world. Also, two alumni from the 8200, so we'll talk about that this afternoon. But Shlomo and Assaf, thank you for joining us. So let's just first talk about, when you had success with first companies, what made you want to start from scratch and do it over again?
So basically, I've been doing startups since the age of 16, so that's 40 years. So the answer is I don't know how to do anything else. My first commercial startup was Checkpoint. Actually started at my grandmother's apartment. Was our first, my late grandmother's apartment was our first office. And when after 10 years of doing that, there was always the choice of becoming an investor or an entrepreneur, and decided I still want to be an entrepreneur. I always compare this to being a basketball player. Who wants to be a coach when you can still play basketball? And that was the same thought before my third startup. Right? I still had a few more good years on the court, so I thought I'll give it a try.
I've heard of startups in a garage, but never grandma's apartments. That's good.
I think unique.
Did she get equity?
She was already not with us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Assaf, how about you? Going back to start again.
I actually must start with that. I'm super excited. Usually it's because of the audience, and sorry for that. I'm actually excited being side by side by Shlomo for me. Again, we always say in the Israeli ecosystem, in the cyber ecosystem, that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. This is the giant. This is the founder of Checkpoint, of Imperva, of Cato, and not only amazing start. And it's important to say that when I'm going to speak like, hey, this is my second startup. Yeah. My first one was at 2.5 years, sold to Microsoft. These are startups. These are giants in the Israeli ecosystem as of today, which is crazy. And not only that, like an amazing entrepreneur, but investor, actually my investor. So thank you for that. But of many others.
I didn't know this. Wait a minute. This is conflict of interest here. This is going to be.
Well, yeah.
And actually, I'm here to listen and learn. I have tons of questions.
Thank you for that.
All right, we have you guys argue and challenge each other here. But this is going to be a layup. No, come on. Go ahead.
Yeah, but basically, per your question, I must say that in a way, my first time was kind of a mistake. I've been to McKinsey. I've been a consultant. I didn't like it. I did it for 2 years. And kind of when I left, I said, okay, from being a consultant, that basically doing only presentations and not actually doing, in a way, I missed something. So I said, okay, what's almost the opposite? What is like doing everything? So basically that was my first entrepreneurship in a way. The second time was actually, for me at least, curious about yours, but I was super afraid because Adalon was, again, successful, 2.5 years, $300 million, sold to Microsoft. Wow. But the second time, you're like tons of expectations you have. And everybody are expecting at least you'll do as Adalon. And it's hard. I know, being first-time entrepreneur, you're saying you don't know what you're going into. Second time, you exactly know what's going to happen. So it was much tougher. But in a way, I think it's kind of a virus in a way in you that you feel that's the only thing you probably know to do.
Exactly. Everybody's asking what have you learned from the first startup. And I think it's important to learn, but it's also important to forget. Because if you're carrying the first startup and don't forget you've done it, it's very difficult to do the next one.
What was the third? You've done 3. Is the third one harder than the second?
Actually, the third one is easier, but it's a
good to know.
I'm still working on number 1. In terms of, so you sell your first startups, you have success, and you have all these options. You could do another startup, you can be an investor, you can retire, who knows? How do you come up with that idea, being like, okay, I did the one. This is my second startup. I want to devote everything to this. Like, was that when you had the idea for your second companies? Was it like a bolt of lightning? Was it an idea that kind of evolved? I want to hear about that. When you decide to like, I'm going to pull the trigger on this second thing. Like, how was that decision process, and when do you make that leap?
So I'll talk about Cato, which is the freshest environment. So first of all, I didn't quite make a decision because I did both investments and basically been a pretty active VC until Cato became too large to allow for that. And Cato started with a different idea. So we basically had a general concept of a disruption in the market that is happening, software-defined network. And my partner, Gur Schatz, came with an original idea that was more data center centric. And after 3 months, I remember the evening, we were sitting there and looking at each other, and we invested 3 months of our life developing this, and this is not good enough. And that's really something that is, I think, the #1 characteristic of a successful entrepreneur, intellectual honesty. To look at things and say, this is not good enough, we need to change that. So we went back home, and something popped into my head. I gave a call to Gur, told him, what about this? And that's Cato. Yeah.
See, it's easy, guys. Very, very
So
easy, folks. Yes.
Complete depression and loss of all hope is the best vehicle for innovation.
Perfect. Assaf, how about you?
So for us, it was always about the team. So we always started with a great team with a bad idea, which I think it's the best way to start in a way. So the last one, Wiz, actually we were named beyond networks. We were thinking we were going to do network security. Eventually we found out that, hey, we're going to do cloud security very far, and then we got stuck with a name. So the second time when we chose a name, we said, okay, we don't know if this idea is going to be the right. I'm not sure that we're doing the right idea, but in a way, let's at least choose a name that we don't need to change. So basically we can sell pencils tomorrow, but so we're safe on that side. But I think that the key message that, it's always, people are asking, how did you get to the idea? That's not the important thing. How did you find your team? That's the most important. I don't have an idea for a startup. I have a team for a startup. That's the major thing.
When you build your team, what are you looking for? Are these people you know already? You interview them? Or do you just kind of network and be like, wow, this person, I want this person to work with me? How do you spot talent in partners? And I want to hear it from both of you because
So in a way, they're going to be a panel on 8200. So I was lucky to meet my founders at 8200. I was lucky to be friend of them, to work with them. So kind of, and again, it's not always the same like that. And sometimes, best friends are not best founders together. And it's important to, I was lucky to have it on the first time, and lucky to have them and to get their trust on the second time. So basically we have the same founding team. And basically my founders, I work with them 21 years. We're working together since 8200, startup, first Microsoft, and the second startup Wiz today.
Yeah, I think pretty much same experience. In the first startup, it was like entire unit in the 8200 moved and became a Checkpoint. And over the years, there's been kind of a second generation and third generation of folks that I've worked with. So if I look at the management team today at Cato, these are people that worked with me for 20 years, most of them. So I think natural selection, people that can work with me for 20 years are welcome to continue.
It's a great network, great community. It's like a recruiting panel for 8200.
I have a question actually to Shlomo that I'm super curious. I started my entrepreneurship in the cybersecurity 2013. Again, since then, money is almost free. It's always going up the markets. This is the first time for me that we're kind of having a crisis. So curious to your thoughts. You saw more than me in a way. Is this crisis a different? What kind of advice can you give, like startups, unicorns like us today?
I think first of all the downturn is an excellent time for a cyber startup because one, cyber has proven, and I lived through the 2000 and 2008 crisis, and also early 90s was a very difficult financial period when we started Check Point, was before the internet boom. Cyber has proven to be very resilient. So in terms of demand from the market, there's not going to be, I think, a drop. I'm very optimistic about that. And in terms of financial planning of the company itself, it's always the same. When you do a round, you need to raise enough money in order to get to the next round with a good up valuation. And you need to be efficient along the way. That's the guiding factors.
Yeah, who out here is concerned about the markets right now? Worried about funding, worried about everything? Okay. And so how have you guys are navigating it, you've done this before, not that it's easy, and this is your first kind of big recession. How, as leaders and entrepreneurs and CEOs, how are you changing the way you do business right now, or is it just, kind of steady, keep on doing the same thing? Have you altered anything in the last few months?
So it's a good question. Again, we're seeing the same as Shlomo. I think that, I don't think any so we're in the cloud security space. I don't think any company said, hey, we're going to stall our digital transformation. We're not going to move to the cloud because of the crisis. So we're not seeing that. And the same about security and the resilience there. So this is like a very good signal business-wise because we're building a real business and unit economics are right. So that's one thing. The other thing, I think we're, again, there is a saying, you raise money when you can, not when you need it. So we were lucky to raise 6 months ago, $600 million. So kind of we have enough runway. But it is important because we are seeing valuation at the public market dropping. It will definitely affect the private market. So you need to grow into your valuation in a way sometime. So basically, I'm more, if I was more about, 6 months ago, I was more about growth. This time, it's the opportunity to grow is important, and we continue with that. But it's more about, hey, making sure that we are efficient and making sure that we have enough runway, basically forever.
Very cool. Yeah. How about you?
So we are in a different market. This is a replacement market. This is old technology from 20 years ago. The organization replaced their network and their network security because they need to enable digital transformation. So essentially, we are saving customers money and providing them more efficiency so they can save money through digital transformation. So that market, we believe, is going to actually accelerate in downturn. And we are accelerating our growth as well. Just the board approved another acceleration plan, which, it's quite unusual in these days.
Yeah, very cool. It's interesting, the replacement thing of it all. There's it's true that in every great downturn has, sprouted incredible, society-changing startups, especially in tech. If you look at the dot-com bubble, you look at the credit crisis, and then, maybe now. What do you expect, both of you, what advice to everyone out here? They're all founders. There's opportunity and challenges with this downturn. What advice can you give to them at this moment to take advantage or be opportunistic at this at the slowdown, now the kind of froth has been blown away? What advice in terms of innovation in these challenging times?
So I think there is a Formula One saying that you cannot overtake 15 racing cars on a sunny day, but you might do it on a rainy day. So in a way, definitely that's an opportunity, and we're looking to that. I think that, again, lucky we're coming to this opportunity in a way strong, just because we raised enough money to go through this recession, maybe through the next recession as well. I think the opportunity here is first talent-wise. I think that the competition that we're seeing, I think the talent will go to more companies that have like a real business, and I think that's an opportunity for cybersecurity companies like Cato and Wiz and others that we're seeing. So this is something that is good for us because the talent in Israel, this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. I think it's also an opportunity for acquisitions. I think that 6 months ago, a year ago, every Israeli entrepreneur dream about becoming a unicorn. that was like, hey, it's no longer we need an exit. We all can be unicorns.
Yeah.
I think that maybe the taste of the entrepreneurs might change, and some might think, hey, you know, unicorn is one. Look at or going public. You know, it's not. I'm a private company today. I'm happy that I'm private, looking at the public market. So, you know, the taste has changed. So I think that, you know, opportunities for merger M&As. So this can be an unorganic way to grow as well. So in a way, again, I'm not looking forward to recessions, but definitely this is an opportunity.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is the best time to start a startup. And we talked about ideas. Ideas are not the daring to go for an idea and dedicate your next 10 life to an idea. That's the real hurdle. And I think this is the best period to do that for all the reasons that Assaf mentioned.
Well, you guys are on the cutting edge, the front lines of security, cybersecurity. Everyone out here, what should we all be worried about right now, security-wise? What are you seeing? Any interesting developments, threats? What keeps all the cybersecurity folks up at night?
I think the main problem is complexity. If you look at cybersecurity market 30 years ago when we started Checkpoint, it was pretty simple. You had an antivirus, you had a network firewall, and you are done. Today you go at RSA and you see hundreds, if not thousands, boots out there, each with their own widget. And if you are kind of middle of the market, a mid to large enterprise, there's no way in the world you can consume that, which makes you vulnerable, in times of peace, makes you vulnerable in times of war. So I think fighting complexity and providing a better consumption model to security capabilities we are already invented is the real challenge in front of us.
Interesting. Assaf, what are you seeing?
Again, we're in a way fighting crime, and it's interesting, and still, unfortunately, and in a way, the bad guys are still winning. It's worthy to be like a cyber criminal in a way because the risk is very low. I'm looking at the Ukraine, Russia, Finland, whatever. I think that, seeing like nations attacking or potentially attacking companies, not even other nations. This might be a threat. So this is a bigger threat that we're seeing. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. But that could be a real threat to the world. We're in the cloud security space. Cloud today is essential as oil and gas industry. Like, if just imagine what happens to AWS, GCP, Azure, if that hurts. So I think that's kind of the thing that we should be aware of today.
And then to end on a positive note, what in the security world or cyber world or even entrepreneur world makes you optimistic, makes you excited right now?
So I'm super excited to see what's happening in the Israeli ecosystem, and again, to see all the Israeli unicorns that are coming and the innovation. I'm optimistic on that side because we're seeing real businesses, not like dream companies, but real business trying to solve real problems, hard problems, complex problems. And I think if we have the right talent, collaborating sometimes, that would make me optimistic.
Very cool.
Let me just continue this point. When we started at Checkpoint, I remember the first beta sites, our consultant said, let's hide the fact that you're an Israeli company. Let's pretend you're American, try to talk with American accent. And I just went to, I was in a meeting in Japan. So these guys are telling each other, this is an Israeli cybersecurity company. We know nothing about them, but they must be great because they're Israeli.
So there's a good
brand name. And I think kind of the gap between these two is a good 30 years of work.
So when I started with saying we're standing on the shoulders of giants, this is exactly what paved my way to be on this seat. So thank you.
Before we go, can you give me your American accent impression?
I failed miserably at the...
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.